Hello everyone, welcome back to the stream. So as you might have noticed from the the title and the game selection, we'll be getting back into the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles tonight. I know that I haven't played this in a long time. Like, I went back to check them on my YouTube channel when I uploaded the last part, and it was in September, so it's been over half a year since I last played this game. But I really did want to get back into this because, for one, I love the Phoenix Wright games. So I really want to just play this game and get through it. But second, this was the first venture I had in like doing voice acting kind of story-based stuff on my Twitch and on YouTube. You could technically count New Pokemon Snap as the quote-unquote first venture into voice acting on Twitch, but Great Ace Attorney Chronicles was the first like very story-based one that I started doing. So, with that being said, where did we last leave off? Episode 4, The Adventure of the Clouded Kokoro, Trial Part 1. Also, I will be trying to keep the voices. Like, I went back and rewatched a little bit of what I did back in September, and I kind of have a feel for the voices, but if they don't sound exactly the same, I'm sorry. But where did we end off? Well, let's just load it up. Okay, so while this goes, or once after this finishes, I'll go over what we last did, because it's been a while. We're in episode 4 right now. We just finished the investigation. The Irish dude, I can't remember his name. I know it starts with an M. The guy that we were questioning at the end of the last trial, whether or not he actually did it or not, was killed in a fire inside the wagon that was the main piece of evidence. But that goes to another thing, not including us. So we got another trial involving another Japanese immigrant who was suspected to have stabbed a woman with a knife, and so now we're defending him. I don't remember much of the evidence. I don't remember much of the motives. I'll kind of pick that up as we go along, but I did kind of just want to do a refresh of what's kind of been happening in this game. Because again, 7 months. Okay. And again, I'll try to do the voices as close as I can to what I normally did back then, but I'm definitely not going to be able to do it spot on. So, 20th of February, 9:23 a.m. The Old Bailey Defendant's Antechamber. Well, I never expected this. Who would have thought we'd be back here again so soon? We are on a study tour of Great Britain, with the intention of learning this country's legal practices. In order to research the latest court procedures here, we need as much court experience as possible. Well, yes, I suppose that's true, but for the person in the dock, it may well be his or her one and only time in court, and it could be life-changing. In which case, treating it as research may seem a little crass. Oh, when you put it like that, you're quite right.
Good morning.
Ah, Mr. Natsume, good morning. Oh dear, are you alright? Your eyes are terribly bloodshot.
The only bird catches a worm, as they say here in Britain.
Yes, I've heard that expression.
But I really don't want to catch a worm. So I tried desperately not to wake up early, but I was so worried I couldn't catch a wink. And now I'm absolutely exhausted as a result.
Do all literary people take things so literally? Thank you for putting your faith in us today, Mr. Natsume. Uh-oh.
I wish I had 9 lives. My whole future hangs in the balance. I'm too terrified to tremble.
Really? Because I can feel tremors in the floor. Also, let me know if, regarding like the, microphone and the game audio, let me know if it's too loud, too soft, if anything needs to be adjusted, because I know that the microphone might go up and down a lot doing this. So yeah, if it's too loud, let me know. I'll try and keep an eye on the microphone when I can.
I can't do this. I can't take it. Hello, locum student Mr. Naruhodo Esquire.
Yes?
I caught a glimpse of the public gallery as I walked by the courtroom. It looked like the opening night of the opera. There were so many people. I had no idea my case was such a notorious affair here in London.
Oh? Neither did I. Do you know when that might be, Miss Susato? I'm sorry, Mr. Naruhodo, but I have no idea. So that all-knowing look on your face is just coincidence then, is it?
Don't hide the truth from me! It's because of the Reaper, isn't it?
Lord Van Zeeks? Is that right, Miss Susato? I purchased as many different newspapers as I could find this morning, and yes, Lord Van Zeeks is on the front page of every one. I knew it! Sometime after the prosecutor was dubbed the Reaper of the Bailey, he stopped appearing in court, it seems. It's been several years now, in fact, until the day before yesterday. Yes, Inspector Gregson told us something similar, didn't he? The trial 2 days ago marked Lord Van Zeeks' return to the courtroom after a very long hiatus. The trial of Magnus McGilded. The trial of Magnus McGilded. Ugh, what a harrowing experience that was. I believe that appearance made even greater waves. Oh, greater waves. Greater waves here in the capital than today's. But we wouldn't have realized, of course, having only just arrived in the country. Why is the Reaper back in the Bailey so soon for what appears to be a mundane murder? That's the question the papers are asking, and they all speculating various answers. Okay, also give me a second. I need to go get like a Tums, and then I'll be right back. Also, I hope that the bitrate doesn't drop too much tonight. Okay, I'm back. Also, I guess the bitrate won't be that much of a problem since this is like a story-based game. Just as long as it's not a consistent drop in bitrate. Okay.
Mundane? Mundane? It's the most significant saga of the century to some of us.
Oh dear, I meant no offense, Mr. Natsume, but that is how the papers are describing it.
Well, lest we also forget that it could spark an international incident. Obviously, the reappearance of this infamous prosecutor has caught people's attentions. But there's another blatant similarity with the trial of 2 days ago.
Yes, I agree.
Locum student Mr. Naruhodo Esquire. It's you.
Me? Well, I suppose that's true.
Both times it is you who stands against this legendary prosecutor. It can only mean that you're friends with the Reaper.
Please, I don't rub shoulders with Deathbringers. I'm afraid that there's really only one other explanation. It can only be another example, Mr. Naruhodo, of your uncommon bad luck. Thanks for that.
Oh, this is just my luck. Why must I be represented by a man with such frail fortune? By the least lucky lawyer alive.
Well, let's not forget that it was you, Mr. Natsume, who asked me to represent you. Yes, it's true that I'm just a student new to Landon, new to Landon, with little in the way of experience or skills, or luck. But I promise you this, I will fight your corner until the bitter end, and I will believe in you, Mr. Natsume.
Oh, benevolent locum student Mr. Naruhodo Esquire.
You're not alone here with us, Mr. Natsume. Whatever happens, we will always be on your side.
Oh, benevolent non-locum assistant Miss Mikachoba Esquires. I am in your debt forever. I shall never forget this. Mr. Natsume, counsel for the defense.
I kind of spit a little on that one. Whoops.
The court session is about to begin. Kindly make your way into the courtroom at once.
All right then, Mr. Natsume, it's time. Let's go.
Yes!
I really need to look at the microphone every so often. This is it. My second appearance in a British courtroom. And my second trial against the Reaper. I hope you're watching over me, Kazuma. Because this time, I won't let my faith waver. I'll believe in my client to the last. Just like you believed in me. I believe I can do this now. I'm ready for this fight. Part 1, end. By the way, I don't know if I mentioned this earlier, but I definitely am going to try and get through a part. For anyone who knows the Ace Attorney series, they tend to have like episodes, and then there are parts inside the episodes. So I want to tonight at least get through one part. If there's enough time, I'll try and get through 2 parts, but I definitely want to get through one part and then something else. So this will go on for a while. So I hope you like my voice, and I hope you like this game, I guess. 20th of February, 10 a.m., the Old Bailey Courtroom.
In the name of Her Majesty the Queen, I hereby declare this court to be in session. I now call upon the counsels for the prosecution and defense to declare their willingness to proceed.
The prosecution is fully prepared, my lord. The defense is ready, my lord. The Nipponese are truly a fascinating breed. Sorry, what? Lord Strongheart has told me all about you. That you are a student who arrived in London but 2 days ago. A mere amateur. Do you have a point? Being a compatriot, you feel compelled to try to help the accused, I suppose. Typical Nipponese arrogance. Forgive me, but I do not believe arrogance is an appropriate description. Susato-san. After all, at our previous encounter, the defendant was found to be innocent. Very true. And a most fascinating, if dark, trial it was, too. The tragic conclusion came later, of course. He is to be acquitted in his unfortunate violent end.
Thank you, counsels. I see both sides are in fine fettle. Now, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, are you ready to carry out your duties here in court as impartial members of the public?
Oh, I remember this guy, but I don't remember the voice I gave him. I think I gave him just like a very deep voice.
You never know when you might be down on your luck, but I believe in fair play for everyone.
Well, I must warn you, I'm rather more ruthless than I appear. Oh, well, not me. What you see is what you get. I'm a peace-loving fellow.
I'm afraid to say, I think it's quite possible that mustached foreigner did the deed. Come on, what are we waiting for? No doubt he did it anyway.
Oh, jeez. Let me try and do an old man voice.
Sorry, didn't quite catch that.
Okay.
Very well, let us proceed. Your opening statement, if you please, Lord Van Zeeks.
Very recently, Great Britain signed an alliance with a rising power in the Far East. The accused in the dock today is a student from that same land, a certain Mr. Soseki Natsume. And while our country has extended this foreign student the warmest of welcomes, regrettably, the kindness has not been returned. In fact, the student is accused of a most sinister act. Of plunging a knife into the back of an innocent woman who was doing nothing but walking down the street.
A knife crime? I tell you from bitter experience, those are the worst. Bloody oath they are.
Just look at that sallow complexion and short stature. He's one of those dreadful Japanese.
Come on, let's get this over with. With me now, everyone. 1, 2, 3. Sorry, didn't quite catch that.
Pray, forgive the discourtesy of smashing my hollow chalice here in this great chamber. Allow me to call the first witness to the stand.
Very well. Bailiff, lead the inspector in, please.
Your name and occupation, please.
Yes, sir. Tobias Gregson, Detective Inspector at Scotland Yard.
Would you please summarize the events of the case for the court, Inspector?
The victim is thought to be a young woman in her 20s by the name of Olive Green. I beg your pardon, Inspector. Thought to be.
I'm getting these two mixed up now.
Yes, having been stabbed in the back by her attacker's knife, the victim fell unconscious. That was 3 days ago now, and she's been comatose ever since.
What? So they don't even know who she is for sure?
Comatose. I see. But her life is not in danger.
Fortunately for the Eastern student, the charge will not be murder. Pray, Elaborate on the details, Inspector.
Sure, if I could ask everyone to look at the street map. Street map, street routes. As I mentioned, the incident took place 3 days ago, at around 5 in the afternoon. It happened on the pavement running alongside Briar Road, a wide thoroughfare for horse-drawn vehicles. It had not long since stopped snowing as the victim, Miss Green, was walking down the street. Out of the blue, she was approached from behind by the accused and stabbed in the back. Luckily, the young lady's life was spared, and she's currently being treated in one of the city's hospitals. But being unconscious as she is, we've been unable to take a statement from her, of course. This is the case file with everything we know about the victim so far. Thank you, Inspector. The court will accept the documents as evidence if you please.
The case file has been entered into the court record. A file containing an overview of the case and details about the victim. She was found with a knife in her back and is currently in hospital, yet to regain consciousness. Court record. People. Olive Green, the victim of this case, who was found with a knife in her back. Luckily, the wound didn't prove fatal, but the woman remains unconscious in her hospital bed. So, though concrete details about the man are not forthcoming, and then I know all of these already. Joanne Gardeb, and she's a prosecutor, or she's on the jury. Iris Wilson, 10. Saseki Natsume, 33. Tobias Gregson, 44. Mal Strongheart, 52. Susato. Oh, nope, I want to go to evidence now. Local map. Okay. Secondhand book receipt. A receipt discovered in Mr. Natsume's room for some books that he had purchased from a secondhand bookshop before the incident occurred. Okay. Case file. Details. Young woman rendered unconscious following a stab wound to the back. Victim Olive Green, female, stout build, early 20s. Location, pavement of Briar Road, east side. Reporting officer, Rolly Beat. Additional notes. The victim remains unconscious. Her name was gleaned from her personal effects. Other details are unknown. Apart from the single stab wound from the large knife, no other signs of injury were observed. The assailant was seen running away by the reporting officer and was successfully arrested the following day. Okay, so not too much. What of the weapon that was used?
Sure, I have that here. It was removed from the victim's back.
Ouch! That big thing is starting to make me scared to walk down the street now. With a heavy blade like that, almost anybody would have been able to stab the poor woman. Even the scragged-looking Soseki-san, I suppose.
A common or guarded jackknife, I would say. Rather nondescript. Thank you, Inspector. The court accepts the blade as evidence.
Jackknife has been entered into the court record.
Now then, what do we know of the motive? Money or valuables, I presume?
A large but commonplace folding knife. It was found lodged in the victim's back. So I can't examine this right now. But I'll go along with the story for right now and then figure out
From what we can tell by looking at the women's possessions, it seems like she's a poor student herself. Hard to imagine she would have had anything much worth pinching, my lord. I see. Well, in that case, are we looking at some deep-seated resentment toward the victim? I'm afraid I couldn't say. Apart from visiting second-hand bookshops, the defendant, Mr. Natsume, doesn't appear to get out much. At this moment in time, we haven't been able to establish any sort of connection between him and the victim.
Yes! Yes! If theft and grievance had been ruled out as the motive, what reason could Mr. Natsume possibly have had for stabbing the young woman? Yet you arrested the man in spite of that, in a totally unjustified and heavy-handed way.
Objection!
Fred, please don't. Pray forgive the discourtesy of flinging a freshly uncorked bottle into the public gallery. Fred, go lay down. But your words have soured its hallowed bouquet. For it is you, my learned friend, who is being heavy-handed here. What? Scotland Yard does not arrest people without good cause. That should be beyond question. Inspector Gregson, the prosecution calls for your formal testimony. Explain to the court precisely why the constabulary came to arrest the Nipponese student.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Natsume's arrest.
As I said, it was 5 o'clock in the afternoon when the incident occurred, and there was an unusually light fog. Visibility was reasonably good, and there was no one else about but the victim and the accused. Out of the blue, the victim was stabbed from behind and subsequently collapsed on the pavement. The accused ran off, scattering his belongings all over the floor, those being a number of old books he just bought. He was on his way home from a bookshop, it seems. It was just a matter of working out who the books belonged to, and we found the bloke to arrest him. Old books, you say? Yes, my lord. I have a photograph here of the scene of the crime, taken immediately after the incident. Oh yes, I can clearly see the books to which you are referring. I will take that photographic printer's evidence, please, Inspector.
The crime scene photograph has been entered into the court record. A photograph of the scene taken by a policeman just after the incident occurred. A large knife can be seen thrust into the victim's back. You Nipponese are a spineless breed, too cowardly to admit defeat, denying everything despite overwhelming evidence to the contrary. Well, Forgive me, Lord Van Zeeks, but the defendant is not denying everything as you put it. What are you doing, Miss Susato?
Do go on.
Mr. Natsume has admitted to playing some part in the incident. Isn't that right, Mr. Naruhodo? Well, now you mention it. When we visited him in the prison yesterday, he did tell us what had all happened.
As I was walking along that accursed pavement, I could make out the sole silhouette of another ahead of me. A woman wearing a green overcoat she was, and just as I went to overtake her, she suddenly let out a little scream and collapsed onto the cold hard slabs of stone at my feet. I was terrified. I had to get away from there. So I ran, as fast as my legs would carry me back to my accursed lodgings. A green overcoat?
Wow, that's exactly what the woman in that print is wearing. Oh my! A photographic print in full color! What will the world come up with next? I need to keep it on microphone because I'm talking. The defendant has done nothing more than admit he fled the scene of a terrifying incident. That does not mean that he's guilty of the heinous crime of stabbing the woman in the back. There was nobody else there at the time, just the two of them, the victim and the accused. In other words, there is nobody else who could possibly have stabbed the woman. A fact that the accused concedes.
It seems this cross-examination could prove to be pivotal, Counsel. Proceed, please.
Yes, my lord. Nothing for it. I have to use this cross-examination to turn the tables here. It's our only chance.
Okay. As I said, it was 5 o'clock.
As I said, it was 5 o'clock. I don't know what voice to give this guy, because the voice I was giving him before, I'm getting it mixed up with the judge, and I'm kind of just mixing along different voices.
As I said, it was 5 o'clock in the afternoon when the incident occurred, and there was an unusually light fog.
Hold it! Press. A light fog, you say?
Well, light for London. You can see the opposite side of the street for once. Not much farther, though.
That's light, is it?
Around these parts, yes. Not something I'd expect a Japanese fellow like yourself to know, of course.
I've read that London is famous for its fog, but in my country, people usually imagine that gives the city a rather beautiful appearance. How quaint.
Yes, well, it's not something us Londoners tend to romanticize, as I expect you can appreciate.
I see.
At this time of year, the fog causes a large number of accidents, especially when it's heavy. Sometimes you can't even see your own hand at the end of your arm. Indeed, the other day I was very nearly trampled by horses before I could see the carriage they were pulling.
Susato-san and I should definitely remember to stop, look, and listen. However, on the day that concerns us, the fog was somewhat lighter than usual. A fact no doubt lamented by the accused.
Visibility was reasonably good, and there was no one else about but the victim and the accused. Whoops.
Hold it! Press. How are you able to state that with any certainty? Quite simply, my learned friend, because that is what the witnesses to this crime have told us. Ah yes, Inspector Gregson mentioned the witnesses yesterday, didn't he? That's right! One of them is a policeman, I believe, from Scotland Yard.
That is correct, ma'am.
Then we must hear their testimony. The prosecution will of course call them to the stand, should it be necessary. But wait a minute! At 5 o'clock in the afternoon in the middle of winter, it would have been dark already. No matter how light the fog might have been, no one could have seen. I'm unaware of the situation on your tiny island in the east. But here in the capital city of Great Britain, all main roads are illuminated in the night by gas streetlights. Ah! The prosecution believes there would have been ample light by which to witness the crime.
Quite. Here in London, for the first time in history, mankind has completely conquered the darkness.
Which means we really need to hear those witness statements. If I could just get through the fog of this cross-examination, maybe we'll be able to. It seems the counsel for the defense is taking stock. Continue with your testimony, Inspector. Boom, bam, bam, boom, bam, boom, bam, boom, bam, boom, bam, boom, bam, bam.
Out of the blue, the victim was stabbed from behind and subsequently collapsed on the pavement.
Ah, I keep pressing A when I want to press. Hold it! When I want to press. From behind, you say?
That's right, as you can see from this print. Yes, quite so, Inspector. The handle of the weapon is clearly protruding from the victim's back. And you see this poor woman, Miss Green, remains in a critical condition.
Oh, that kind of peaked.
Comatose, no less.
I'm afraid so, my lord. Yes, she's been treated at Bart's. She's being treated at Bart's.
I was hopeful that she'd come round before the trial started so I could take a statement, but it wasn't to be. Yes, that is indeed a pity. It would have been most illuminating to hear the victim's own account of events.
Luck is on your client's side, it seems. On the contrary, my client has been exceedingly unlucky. Your force of tone is seriously undermined by those disturbingly wide eyes, I'm afraid. Ah.
The accused ran off, scattering his belongings along the floor.
Hold it!
I can't get a voice for this guy. Mr. Natsume's belongings?
I think you'll find it's there in the photographic print of the crime scene. Yes, the 3 books on the floor. That's right, my lord. Second-hand books they were. Irreparably damaged after falling in the snow, of course.
The accused could easily have carried all 3 books in one hand, which means his other hand would have been free to wield a knife, for example. He's very clever, isn't he? What do you mean? He's made it extremely hard for you to assert that Mr. Natsume had his hands full with his books. He's managed to close the one avenue of escape we might have had before we even knew it was there.
You mean to say that the defendant was holding his belongings as he thrust the knife into the woman's back? That must be what happened, my lord, yes.
I think I'll go with that voice.
Those being a number of old books he just bought. He was on his way home from a bookshop, it seems.
Hold it!
The defendant apparently visits a second-hand bookshop on a daily basis.
Yes, so I understand. A shop full of old English literature.
I commend the accused on the lofty subject matter of his scholarly attention.
The bloke's room was stacked floor to ceiling with those musty old books.
Can you tell us more about the bookshop in question, please, Inspector?
Well, if I must, I'll have to ask you to look at the street map again, I'm afraid. The closest second-hand bookshop to the accused's lodgings is this place here, Bourbon Books. A little place on the corner of Briarwood and Meerschaum Street. As it happens, the accused is currently living in lodgings on the other side of Briar Road at the opposite end. Which means it doesn't take a genius to work out the route he would have taken home. Something like this.
The local map's information has been updated in the court record.
Yes, I concur with your conclusion, Inspector. The defendant would certainly have passed the scene of the crime on his way home from that particular shop.
Mr. Naruhodo? I think that what the inspector just told us could turn out to be of vital importance. Yes, I agree. The most important point that the inspector just made being... Whoops. East side, so, okay, no, that's correct. Secondhand book receipt. Your books, the name of the place. The picture of Monsieur Lecoq. A meal for Gabriel, Canterbury Yearnings. Yep, it's the name. The bookshop's name. Inspector Gregson, may I ask you a favor?
What?
Would you kindly add the name of the bookshop to your formal testimony, please? I believe it may be of vital importance.
Maybe?
Oh, well, you know, I mean, yes! It could be a very important clue.
Very well, not that I can see it being of any great significance, but please revise your testimony accordingly, Inspector.
Yes, sir, my lord. Whatever you say.
Did the man be any more sardonic? So now we have, he was on his way home from Bourbon Books, a secondhand bookshop he apparently patronizes. Okay. Well, I know that I need to present this, so.
Objection!
Objection! If I could just stop you there, Inspector Gregson.
What is it, sunshine? I'm a busy man, you know.
This is a receipt that we found in Mr. Natsume's room. It was issued on the day of the incident and details the purchase of 3 secondhand books.
And you found that in the accused's room, did you?
Whoops. Yes, but the point is not where the receipt was found, but the name of the shop printed on it. Go on. This receipt was issued from a bookshop called Your Books.
Your Books? Y-O-R-E, I presume.
Yes, my lord. So Mr. Natsume did indeed purchase a number of books at a second-hand bookshop that day. However, the bookshop in question was not Bourbon Books.
Me? What?
Inspector, do you know of this other bookshop?
Yes, sir. Your Books is another secondhand bookshop not far from Bourbon Books. It's just that, well, it's such a small place, I didn't think the accused would have known about it.
Objection!
But in fact, that is the bookshop which the defendant visited on the day in question. And this receipt proves it.
Objection!
Yes, for what difference it makes. Wherever the man purchases musty tomes, it makes no difference in the final analysis.
Objection!
I disagree. I mean, after all, I have the street map here, if that might be of help. Oh, yes, thank you. Have a look at this, please. If the defendant had been returning from Bourbon Books, then yes, he would almost certainly have passed the place where Miss Green was attacked. However, if we take into account the fact that he was actually at another bookshop, Your Books, it may very well turn out that he wouldn't have passed that location at all.
Could that be true?
My, it rather depends on where this other bookshop is, but I do declare it may be a possibility. Is that right, Mr. Lawyer, sir? What you just said? Absolutely! It absolutely could be right. I might need to turn down my mic a little bit.
Inspector Gregson, where is this Your Books establishment?
Well, obviously we looked into that. It turns out that Your Books
Is on the other side of Calabash Road. Oh, there, never mind.
is just here on the next corner of Mersham Street going east.
Local maps information has been updated in the court record. And there you have it. As you can clearly see now. Oh. Like I said, my learned Nipponese friend is obviously in training to be a clown, the way he regales us with such witticisms. To your future career in the circus. I sound like Marge.
Homie?
You put that glass down now, or I'll put it down for you.
I, didn't think I needed to spell it out, but here we go. If the accused was coming home from Your Books instead of Bourbon Books, there's no doubt he still would have passed the place where the victim was stabbed.
Only if he went that way. It's equidistant from the other way.
Yes, thank you, Inspector.
Ah.
Allow me to reiterate for my learned, if somewhat slow, Nipponese friend. Wherever the man purchases musty tomes, it makes no difference in the final analysis. Ah! Yeah, that was not a good scream. But then again, I don't want to scream. As I suspected, you can't fool me, and I don't suggest you try.
What did I say? I've had enough of this now.
Beg your pardon? Terribly sorry, but would you mind repeating that?
Mr. Naruhodo, we mustn't give up. What do you mean? If the prosecution's assertion is correct, the members of the jury may very well decide that Mr. Natsume is guilty. Ah, she's absolutely right. We must think. We must consider the assertion just put forward by the prosecution very, very carefully. They claim Soseki-san must have passed the location of the incident on his way home from your books, but... Raise an objection. He could have went the other way because it was equidistant. The assertion just made by the prosecution is fundamentally flawed.
Explain yourself, counsel.
Yes, my lord. You can see what I mean on this map. When returning from your books to his lodgings, Mr. Natsume could have followed the route suggested by the prosecution. However, that isn't the only conceivable route to take between the two places. Yep, Calabash Road. If the defendant used these streets, look what happens. He arrives back at his lodgings without passing the location where the victim was attacked.
Objection! Objection!
Talking back to a clown is a fool's errand, of course. However, I feel compelled to point out that route is what is commonly referred to as the long way around. On a cold winter's night, why would any man choose to take a longer route home? Well, the answer is extremely simple. He wouldn't. In other words, the accused took the obvious route back to his lodgings and is the obvious perpetrator of this crime. But, yes, I've got it. Obviously, we must ask the man himself. Ask Mr. Natsume which route he took home. I have already informed the court of the accused's response to such questioning. He claims he has no recollection.
That's right. As I said, the bloke seems to spend his time outside wandering aimlessly from A to B. That day was no exception. He says he doesn't remember where he was or which route he took home.
I don't believe this! Thank you. I thank you, my learned friend, and suggest that we do not waste any more of the court's time by wandering aimlessly around this subject. Pray, what say you, insightful jurors? But even if that is the case, the defense still...
I agree with Lord Van Zix, wholeheartedly and in every way.
What? I don't believe it. Does this mean...
We members of the jury are completely convinced now. Very well, in that case, I hereby call upon all members of the jury to present your findings to the court.
Guilty!
Guilty.
Guilty! Guilty! Guilty!
Guilty.
Voices. I'm kind of surprised about that, honestly.
It It would appear the jury's leaning is unanimous.
To the insightful members of the jury, I applaud your brave resolve. You serve Queen and country admirably. Mr. Naruhodo? No, not yet. This isn't over yet. I still have one last chance to sway the opinion of the jury. I have to tip the balance of those scales the other way.
Time to tip the scales.
I have to turn this around. Somehow. Those eyes of the quarry, yet not willing to give up and die. So I presume you intend to wield your rights again in this trial. Rights of the defense written into antiquated British law that should have been buried long ago. Call it antiquated if you will, but it's the defense's prerogative to carry out a summation examination if it so chooses.
Very well, counsel. In accordance with the letter of the law, we shall proceed with a summation examination. Are the members of the jury ready, Mr. Foreman? Of course we're ready. I'm all too familiar with that Nipponese whippersnapper and his august refusal to throw in his alley. Very well then. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, you will each explain on what grounds you have determined the defendant to be guilty.
I like how we haven't even called out Gavernade, or whatever her name is. The juror's contention. I mean, technically speaking, the guy on the left too might have a bit of a conundrum for being on the jury as well, because he's not impartial. But then again, this is ancient medieval. Actually, when was this again? 1800s? Late 19th century, so yeah, 1800s. 1800s Great Britain.
For pity's sake, that little Nipponese oddity already admitted it himself, didn't he?
If he said that a woman in green collapsed before his eyes, it can only have been the victim. The man wouldn't have gone around the houses on his way back from the bookshop, not in winter. So the poor woman was attacked from behind, was she? How dreadful.
I really don't care. Can't we just wrap this up now? I've got work to be doing.
Your books. Yes, nice shop, that. But bourbon books? No, not worth a visit.
What? That didn't help at all.
With only minor exceptions, the reasons for finding the defendant guilty are all too clear.
When the stabbing occurred, the only two people at the scene were the victim and the accused. And the accused himself has admitted to seeing the victim in her green overcoat sink to the ground before his eyes.
Furthermore, we have heard from the inspector that the defendant then fled the scene. I must say, I would have ample grounds to convict this man already.
Oh dear, even the judge appears convinced of Mr. Natsume's guilt now. Hi, Big Pup. Sorry, my aunt's pup is here right now, so. Why did he have to run away like that? And how are we supposed to believe in some phantom attacker that nobody could see? What, do you need to go outside? Do you need to go outside? Okay, I'll be right back. Sorry about all this. Normally I'm like in my room doing this, but I'm watching my aunt's house for the past couple weeks because my grandmother broke her knee and my aunt went to go help her. So I'm staying at her house to watch her dog. So I'm doing this in the living room, or of her living room, and normally I don't have to deal with taking care of dogs, but yeah, I have to right now. So so I'll try and move forward a little bit. And how are we supposed to believe in some phantom attacker that nobody could see? This is impossible. How can I possibly make a case for the defense? Mr. Naruhodo, this is no time for grumbling. If we want to force the trial to continue... Yes, I know. I have to turn the tide. I must make the jurors change their minds. Well, 4 of them at least. Exactly. We have no choice but to forge forward.
You have the floor, Counsel. Begin your summation examination.
Okay, let me close the door and then I'll continue. Okay, I should be good for a while now, so... Yes, my lord. I just need to keep this trial going somehow, whatever it takes. Come on, Ryunosuke, you can do it. Jury examination. The defense's rebuttal.
For pity's sake, that little Nipponese...
Hold it!
Excuse me, but aren't you...
Yes, that's right. I was in the witness stand myself just 2 days ago.
Yes, I had a feeling I knew your face. Or the sight of it anyway. If I remember correctly, you're a banker, aren't you?
That's right. After the gold rush down under, I came back to London to work. And it was all going swimmingly until you started fossicking around. Bruce Fairplay was a man of repute.
Sorry?
Don't think I've forgotten how you treated me the other day. You had me and that young hatter pegged as criminals.
Oh, well, you know, water under the bridge.
Now there's all sorts of rumors buzzing around, and the police have been badgering me non-stop.
If I could turn back the clock...
Well, anyway, I don't know about the hatter, but at least I'm in the clear now. And free to make up my own mind about who's guilty and who isn't.
Thank goodness. All right, maybe I might struggle to change this man's mind given our awkward history. Oh dear, I wonder what's become of Mr. First now. Okay. You're right that at the time of the incident, the defendant admits to having seen someone wearing a green overcoat walking ahead of him. Well, quite! That's precisely my point! Clearly that someone wearing green was the victim! And clearly that funny little Nipponese man with the disturbing mustache is the culprit! But let us not forget, madam, the defendant vehemently denies attacking the woman. Why, of course he does! If he admits to stabbing her, his life is over. The man is obviously a liver-faced coward. Honestly, claiming the woman simply collapsed before his eyes. But if that's a lie as you're suggesting, do you not think he would have concocted something more credible? Oh, I really couldn't say. After all, you are... foreign. Who's to say what goes through your funny little minds? I could tell you what's going through my funny little mind right now. I could tell you what's going through my funny little mind right now, but you wouldn't like it. I do declare the man has already made the admission. He himself has stated that there was nobody else around. Surely the conclusion is obvious. No one else could possibly have committed this awful crime. If no one else could have done it, the accused must be the man. Really, it couldn't be more simple.
Your argument is compelling in its simplicity, I must admit.
Oh my, you were too kind, my lord. That went well, for her. The man wouldn't have gone around the houses on his way back from the bookshop, not in winter.
Hold it!
But you can't deny that there are other routes Mr. Natsume could have taken back from your books. Oh yes, like you drew on the map, you mean. What was it? Calabash Road or something? Precisely. But it seems to me that what counts is whether the little Japanese fellow actually went that way or not. Well, yes, that's true. And at the moment, there's no proof that shows he did, is there? Well, yes, that's true as well. And as I understand it, the accused himself doesn't remember which way he went, does he? Well, yes, that's annoyingly true. Winter nights are dark and cold, so the way I see it, you'd want to get home as quickly as possible. Well, yes. Why is all this true? So really, the only thing that makes sense is that he went home along Briar Road. Ah! I'm supposed to be convincing you here. I have given it a lot of thought, you know. I didn't just make up my mind on a whim that he did it. I mean, if there was some logical reason why he might have gone the Calabash Road way, it'd be different. I'd be happy to reconsider my position in that case. Honest, I would. A reason why Sasaki-san might have taken the longer way home. Yes, a good reason. I don't imagine you'll be able to sway this young man's opinion without one.
Hold it!
Whatever's the matter, young man? You're the wife of Mr. Garadeb, aren't you? The landlord who rents Mr. Natsume his room.
The master's wife? Where do you get your ideas, sir? I'm the maid. The maid, you understand?
She's keeping up that charade? This is gonna be awkward. Why didn't you mention this yesterday? That you'd been selected for the jury in this trial, I mean.
Well, I was told not to mention it to anyone until the day of the trial, you see. It was in the letter I received. The instructions were very clear, so I'm afraid I had no choice.
I see. Anyway, Mr. Natsume, the defendant, takes lodging in your master's house, doesn't he?
Yes, that's right. Although he's only been in a little over a week now.
And in that time, surely you must have taken stock of his character. Does Mr. Natsume look like the kind of man who would commit a crime such as this?
Oh my goodness me, yes! He's just the sort.
What?
Spending all his time in the darkened dining room, sporting that unscrupulous mustache. The man never speaks, and don't get me started on those shifty eyes. All the neighbors are talking about him. I've heard them, you know. People think he must be building a bomb in there or something.
Oh dear, poor Mr. Natsume. How could people say such things about him?
Oh, my throat is actually starting to hurt a little bit. Give me a second. Sorry about that. I haven't done a proper, like, story voice acting kind of thing in a while, so I'm out of touch with having to do this again.
He's just a harmless bookworm, nothing more. Well, you just called him a worm, so... Anyway, I'd better be careful about inviting this maid to speak. She said enough damning things already.
I really don't care. Can we just wrap this up now? I've got work to be doing.
Hold it!
A man's life is on the line here, sir. This will take as long as it takes.
Don't get clever with me now, son. My life's on the line too, and so is my family's.
Ah,
The likes of you wouldn't understand, but a laborer like me can't afford to take time off. If I don't work, I don't eat, and neither do the wife and kids.
oh, I see. That must be very hard.
I go to the union every morning to find out what needs doing. If you're late in the work's taken, it's tough. This time of year, there's water and gas supply pipes bursting left, right, and center. They're after cheap labor to get the roads dug up to fix it. It's a hard slog from dawn till dusk, it is.
So, you were out digging up the roads on the day of the incident as well, were you?
That's right. In fact, if I remember rightly, it was just round the corner from where it all happened. By that old bookshop it was.
What? Another coincidence?
That's right, Meerschaum Street it was.
Meerschaum Street? On the map, Mr. Naruhodo, there are only 3 named streets. Juror number 5, I need you to add that information to your formal statement, please.
What's the point in that? Can't we just get this business over with now?
Please, sir, it's important.
Fine, I'll do it then.
I like doing this guy's voice.
On the day it happened, I was digging up Meerschaum Street from dawn till dusk.
Your books, yes. I shop that. Bourbon books? No, not with a visit.
Hold it!
I'll press this and then I'll pit the 2 guys.
Sorry. Fold it, you say? Fold what?
No, what I said was hold it. What I wanted to ask was, do you visit your books often?
I like the old books they have in there, yes. I enjoy reading them over a nice cup of old tea. That's my daily routine, you see. Same thing every day, including the day you're all talking about.
And at what time did you visit your books on the day in question?
Well, I was picking up books in there all afternoon, and it would have been just before 5 that I left. That's my daily routine, you see. Same thing every day, including the day you're all talking about.
Why is this guy ruining my voice? It shouldn't be. Sorry. Just before 5, you say? Exactly when the victim was attacked. Are you sure about the time?
Oh yes, no mistake there. I remember it well. I'm not about to forget that day in a hurry. Not after the dreadful time I had.
What do you mean?
Well, I was walking down Calabash Road when I slipped on the ice and dunked my head. It's always worse after the snow stopped falling. That's when it's most slippery. Knocked myself clean out, I did. I really thought my number was up.
Wait a minute. Let me get this straight. This happened on Calabash Road?
That's right. I live in Cornpipe, you see.
And he's a guy with a big green overcoat and a brown hat.
Heading down Calabash Road is the quickest way for me to get back from your books.
Juror number 6, I must insist that you add that information to your formal statement. It may very well be extremely significant.
Sorry, extremely sick. No, I'm quite all right now.
It sends a shiver down my spine to hear the members of the jury so convinced of Mr. Natsume's guilt. But I can't help feeling that some of their opinions are rather subjective. I agree. It's the irrelevance of what some of them are saying that sends a shiver down my spine. Still, at least some of their assertions don't actually incriminate Mr. Natsume of anything. That's something. We must use that to our advantage, Mr. Naruhodo. Cunningly. Yes, you're right. Let's listen to the jurors again, carefully. And if any of their assertions are at odds, I'll pit them mercilessly against each other. Yes, don't hold back. Pit them all against each other.
Yeah, my neck is getting sore. Okay, so juror number 2 and juror number 6 are a oddity to pit, and then juror number 3 and juror number 5. Yeah, juror number 3 and juror number 5, because Meerschaum Street was being the pipe burst, so he would have gone around the other way. And then juror number 2 and juror number 6, because he passed out. Woman in green, it was a guy in yeah.
Objection!
Objection. Those two statements are clearly at odds with one another.
At odds, Counselor? Explain yourself.
Please, don't point. It wasn't me, I swear.
What? I just want this... I just want to get this done and dusted.
Well, juror number 3? Oh, me, sir? What do you mean? Juror number 5's words just now are extremely significant. Let's take a moment to consider the implications of what's been said on our map of the local area. On the day in question, Mr. Natsume visited this bookshop to purchase a number of second-hand books. And on the same day, we now know that there were works being carried out on Meerschaum Street, making it impassable. Which means that the defendant's route home...
What was that? Oh, probably my phone.
Could not have taken him along Meerschaum Street and down Briar Road. Oh, yes, of course. What do you think, sir?
Well, yes, you can't argue with that, really, can you? We must have had a good 2 yards or more of the pavement up. Every gentleman and gentlewoman that came along had to turn back and go the other way.
So, the only conclusion is this. The defendant must have taken the longer route back to his lodgings. Yes, I suppose he must have.
I suppose that must be right, eh?
Juror number 3, you said the following. The man wouldn't have gone around the houses on his way back from the bookshop. But we see now that he had no choice. Yes! My lord, Mr. Judge, sir, if I may.
Rush?
I don't think in all good conscience that I can say the man's guilty now. Yes, I'd like to see this trial continue so we can get to the bottom of what really happened. What about you, sir?
Eh? Who, me? Well, all right then. If there's a hole in the prosecution's argument, it should be filled in, that's what I say.
I love doing his voice. I don't know what it is, but like, those kind of Gretel working voices, I just really love doing.
Oh, well done, Mr. Naruhodo. That was wonderful. Well, we managed to change a couple of minds at least. It strengthened our position somewhat. Yes, and it will prompt the other members of the jury to reconsider their stance as well. They'll be asking themselves if their current leanings are really right or not. Now, if we could just identify one more clue or discrepancy that would make them stop doubting Mr. Natsume, we might be able to tip the balance completely. Yes, that's exactly what we've got to do. Van Zieks is looking to bring this trial to an early conclusion. That's what we have to prevent by whatever means we have at our disposal.
Thank you, Counsel. On with the summation examination, please.
Yes, my lord. Yes, my lord. I have to say not guilty at this point, so I can see where this trial goes from here.
Whether it's digging up roads or digging up the truth, you've got to see it through to the end, haven't you?
Okay, so now pit juror number 2 against juror number 6.
Objection!
Objection. Those two statements clearly show a flaw in the juror's reasonings.
A flaw? What are you talking about, counsel?
Well, juror number 2, juror number 6. Whatever do you mean, sir? I think perhaps the old man didn't hear you. Unbelievable. It's not like I was loud or anything. There's at least one fact of which we can be sure here. The bookshop receipt found in the defendant's room clearly indicates that on the day of the attack, he had been to your books and purchased a number of second-hand titles. He then returned home on foot. But the man says he has no recollection of his return journey. That's correct. But what he does remember is seeing someone appear in front of him on the way. Someone in a green overcoat who suddenly collapsed on the pavement before his eyes. Yes, we are well aware of all this. The poor young woman who was stabbed, obviously.
Objection!
Can we really be sure of that, madam? My, whatever do you mean? I'm sure you heard juror number 6's account of what happened to him that day. That same afternoon, there was somebody else apart from the victim who was wearing a green overcoat and who fell over on icy streets in the neighborhood. Oh my! Oh my gosh.
No, I might have to get more water soon. Oh, this is destroying my throat.
My goodness, you mean... That's right, I'm referring, of course, to hard of hearing juror number 6. Are you really suggesting that the person in the green overcoat whom the defendant saw collapse in front of his eyes was the jolly old gentleman on the end of the bench here with me today? That is entirely possible, yes. After all, the old man has a somewhat similar build to the victim.
Well, look at that.
My goodness me!
Sorry, you need to pee. You need a pee. A poo. A pee a poo.
Oh, geez. Sorry. Didn't mean to cough in everyone's ear.
And crucially, we know precisely where the old man in the green overcoat fell. Oh, on Calabash Road. Therefore, if the person who Mr. Natsume saw collapsing in front of him was in fact juror number 6, it means the defendant must have taken the long route back to his lodgings. And if that's true, then clearly, the crime scene on Briar Road where the woman was stabbed was not on his way home. Oh my!
You idiot, old man. If you hadn't been so daft as to be roaming about there, we'd have boxed this off hours ago.
And really, what were you thinking wearing such a befuddling coat?
What did you say to me? Is it a crime for...
Oh, jeez. Oh, the old man voice is starting to really destroy my voice. Or throat. I might have to get another thing to put in my mouth.
Is it a crime for the elderly to walk the streets these days? Is it a crime to slip over on the ice? Is it a crime to keep up with the latest styles and wear beautiful green overcoats, is it?
My lord, I do hope it won't cause any inconvenience, but...
You'd like to change your leaning, I presume?
I do declare that I would. I should like to call for a verdict of not guilty. Thank you.
And I would too.
What?
Is it a crime to change your mind, is it? Well...
And then he gets all jolly. And we change the tip. We tip the scales. I wish I could do a Robin voice. Time to tip the scales.
Well, that summation examination has concluded with a rather large shift in opinion. The ayes 2, the noes 4. So the noes have it. Not guilty, they say. Which means we no longer have a consensus among the members of the jury. The trial will continue.
Objection!
Could it seem churlish of me to drink from my hollow chalice moments after raising an objection, only to crush it in disgust? Pray forgive the discourtesy.
Lord Van Zeeks!
It seems I must retract my earlier remark.
What do you mean?
I mistakenly credited these jurors with intelligence by describing them as insightful. Yet we have just witnessed them falling for a cheap trick performed by an Eastern entertainer.
Eh?
Whatever do you mean?
Objection!
No, go, Fred, go, go. I'm sorry, Fred, go, go. Thank you, Fred. I'll give you love tonight. No, go, go.
I haven't tricked anyone. Everything I've said is the truth.
Indeed, stalwart jury number 5 was undoubtedly repairing the road, as he claims. I believe you said it was a good 2 yards of the pavement with which you had excavated, sir.
That's right. Took me the whole day and they paid me a merely twopence for it.
Now, my learned Nipponese friend, tell me. Do you have any notion of the distance that 2 yards represents?
Well, if I'm honest, I don't have a clue, no. 2 yards is a little less than 2 meters.
Less than 2 meters?
That's not much at all.
In other words, a distance readily vaulted by anyone of moderate vigor. Would you not agree, my stalwart friend?
Eh? Me? Well, I can't say you're wrong, no.
What?
And did you perchance erect a sign to prevent pedestrians from passing the site of your works?
Eh? I wouldn't dream of it. What a waste of time. No coaches would have had a hope of passing anyway, and we just turn in and jump the folk back when they come. Kids just jump right over us all the time.
The accused is no gentleman as far as I can see. I have little doubt, however, that he could spring over a 2-yard trench in his meanderings around town.
Is that true? Is it?
The incontrovertible truth is that the books just purchased by the accused were found at the scene. There can be no doubt that on his way back to his lodgings, Mr. Natsume walked down Briar Road.
Crushed in a single sentence.
And, old man,
Cold man, you can talk.
you say that at around 5 o'clock on the day in question, you slipped and fell on Calabash Road. Pray, was there a suspicious-looking Nipponese behind you at the time?
Oh, I can't say as I remember.
You don't remember?
How about a wager, my learned friend? You say it was this old man that the accused saw. But I would lay 1,000 to 1 against you being able to prove it. That was a weird scream, but whatever.
Order! Order! Lord Van Zeeks, explain yourself.
My lord?
If you had such a trenchant argument up your sleeve, why in the world did you not proffer it during the summation examination?
I wanted to give this young foreign student the sightseeing experience he no doubt came for. I wanted him to see for himself how the opinion of the jury is so readily swayed. But my hospitality has limits. and they have been reached, I feel. So, my learned friend, today's sightseeing tour of London is now over.
But what are you talking about?
My lord, the prosecution requests permission to call its next witnesses to the stand.
Granted. Bailiff, bring forth the witnesses.
It's next witnesses? Mr. Naruhodo, do you not remember? We've been told on several occasions that there were eyewitnesses to the incident. Yes, I remember. One of them being a Scotland Yard policeman, no less. I'm afraid that's likely to be the prosecution's next witness. All right, no matter who Van Seeks brings to the stand as his witnesses, and no matter what they say, I believe in Sasaki-san. I know he's innocent, and I'll keep believing to the very end, until this battle is over.
Is this the end of part 1? Nope. Oh god, a female. Oh god. Witnesses, please state your names and occupations for the court.
Constable.
Actually, what voice should I give him? The music is kind of like childish and jolly.
Constable Riley Bitsa! Nothing to report on the streets, sir! And I'm Mrs. Beat. Patricia's my name. I'm proud to say I'm this young town hero's wife. What's the story here? Well, in truth, we've not been married long. In fact, we celebrated our first anniversary only the other day. No, it was your husband I was asking about. He seems tired.
Hardly surprising. Whilst being an honorable occupation, patrolling the beat is the most demanding work in the world.
Oh, really? I'm sure I've heard that before, actually.
Indeed, apart from rare days off, our gallant officers trudge some 20 miles a day, you know. They patrol boarding houses and pubs, collect taxes, survey the streets, check that meters are reading true, and they're responsible for keeping the streets clean and lighting and extinguishing our streetlights.
There are a number of items on that list that don't sound like.
Uh-oh. I'm starting to lose my mind. I haven't done this in so long. Give me a second. Let me recoup.
There are a number of items on that list that don't sound much like policing duties at all. I wouldn't just be falling asleep on my feet. I'd have collapsed long ago.
But it goes without saying that a policeman's primary duty is the apprehension of criminals. Even when he's off duty, a constable is expected to investigate and resolve any crimes on his beat. For the London Bobby is a man of honor.
And a man of slumber.
On the day in question, this man and his wife were walking down Briar Road in the opposite direction, and they witnessed the incident as it occurred. Is that not correct, Mr. and Mrs. Beat? Oh, Raleigh Beat, really Beat, I get it. And Patricia Beat, I don't get Patricia's, but I get Raleigh Beat.
That's right, sir. Isn't it, Raleigh?
Constable Riley Beats, sir. Nothing to report on the streets, sir.
What a great witness he's going to be.
Very good. I'd like to hear your formal testimonies now, please. You will tell the court exactly what you saw on the afternoon of the incident.
Yes, sir! What the witnesses saw.
It was our wedding anniversary, and Rolly was taking me out for a meal. There was no time to change after work. Anyway, two silhouettes appeared out of the fog on the pavement in front of us. All of a sudden, one of them just collapsed on the floor. Then the other scattered something before running off. We ran straight over, of course, and then went for help at a nearby police box. It was definitely the Japanese man in the dock. Rolly and I both saw him as clear as day.
Oh, God. Why did I give her that voice?
Well, this is extremely compelling testimony, I must say.
Oh dear. This policeman and his wife are claiming to have positively identified Mr. Natsume at the scene. If their testimony is true, the alternative course of events that you established in the Summation Examination will be quashed.
It's death knell, in fact, because that alternative was never viable in the first place.
What an unfortunate bechancing. And on your wedding anniversary, too.
Oh, I know. But I still managed to go out for the evening with my man. I thank the Lord for that. Gosh, the life of a London Bobby sounds very hard indeed.
Indeed. However, this cross-examination will be over in minutes. You may well have time to rest this afternoon.
What do you mean by that?
My learned friend, the witnesses saw the face of the man fleeing the scene. They are testifying under oath that it was without doubt the accused, Mr. Soseki Natsume. And one of these witnesses is a policeman, no less. So you appreciate the gravity of the situation, I'm sure.
Except that the man's so tired, his wife has to do all the talking.
Enough preamble. Counsel for the defense, commence the cross-examination, please.
Yes, my lord.
Okay, give me a second. I'm gonna get like a throat lozenge thing, and I'll be back to continue this. Because I do want to get to another part, or at the very least an end of a part, and maybe either continue from there or something. But oh, my voice is really starting to lapse, so I need to do something in order to keep it going. So give me like 5 minutes. Not even that, I'd say. Alright, I'm back. I got myself a bit of a throat thing, and I got some more water. I turned on the light, so if you happen to hear some noises like that, don't worry, it's just a throat lozenge. I'll try and keep it out of the way for the most part, but I definitely need something.
Hold it!
Okay.
No time to change after work, you say? And you are also a member of the police, Mrs. B? Oh no, sadly not. It's a job for strapping young men only. Women, children, and elderly can't apply.
Oh, actually, I also want to check the people. Patricia Beat, 21, the wife of a constable, Roy Beat, who was a witness to the incident. She's relatively recently married and fiercely proud of her policeman husband, Roly Beat, a devoted London bobby who witnessed the incident whilst walking down the street with his wife of a year, Patricia. 23. And they've been married for a year. Good job. I just realized how old I am. I am 6 years younger than Herlock Sholmes. And only 4 years younger than Beric von Zieks. Oh my god. I'm having my existential crisis right now. Wait, was there any evidence? Crime scene photograph. And I never did examine the knife, so let me do that now. Not really all that impressive. And there's nothing to it. I can open it and I can close it. Oh, wait. Here it is.
Oh, look here, Mr. Naruhodo, just at the tip. A small piece of the blade appears to be missing. You're right. Well spotted, Miss Susato. I wonder what could have happened to it. Yes. You don't think. It could still be lodged in the victim, do you? Oh dear, I do hope not. That sounds terribly painful.
Okay. So that's all I got for that.
Well, I think you can probably see why children and the elderly can't do the job, can't you? I think Raleigh looks ever so handsome in his uniform. It suits you down to the ground, doesn't it, darling?
What?
I just finished my beat. Pat and I were heading back to the station. I was actually planning on getting changed there.
Is he talking in his sleep?
This is creepy. Oh no, Raleigh. I much prefer you in uniform. Sometimes I don't recognize you when I see you in plain clothes. Oh dear, that doesn't seem healthy.
I actually do kind of like the voice I'm giving Patricia, but... Oh my gosh, I know that is going to continue destroying my voice.
Kindly adhere to the point. You were going for a meal after you had finished your beat for the day, correct?
That's right, sir. Yes. Although I was fit to drop, to be honest. After spending the whole day on my feet. But policing is my life, sir. As long as I'm the proud owner of this, I'll serve my city and my queen to the end.
What's that now?
My ward card, sir. Proof that I'm a London copper. It has the noble founding principles of the force written on it as a reminder to all its policemen of our sworn duty. To patrol the streets of London town and uphold the peace of the common man. Sir, And for such a noble cause, I cover 20 miles every single day without fail and without a grumble. Because I know that the plodding in my boots is all Londoners need to hear to feel safe and secure.
Jeez.
So, fighting crime doesn't appear to come into it, then. But, sir, just on that one particular day, I was looking forward to celebrating my wedding anniversary. Mrs. Beat puts up with a lot being married to a Bobby like me. I wanted to show my dear wife how much I care.
That's cute. That's really cute.
Oh, Pat. Oh, Rally. Oh, what a charming couple. Their young love is such a joy to behold. If a little over the top, perhaps?
And then, kindly describe what happened next.
Yeah, I really am enjoying giving Raleigh's and Pat's voices, but I know that I'm not going to be able. I hope that it doesn't last too long.
Two silhouettes? That's right. They were coming towards us, walking up Briar Road in the opposite direction. There was a rather plump figure followed by a scrawny, thin-looking man. That does sound exactly like the victim was pictured in this print, and like Mr. Natsume.
Yes, unfortunately it does. And you're certain that at that time there was nobody else nearby?
Oh yes, quite certain. It was dark, but there were streetlights on Briar Road, you see. There was nobody else around at all. Is that right, my darling?
What? Ah, yes, that's right. Of course, there was a light fog on the ground. But Briar Road is dead straight, and you could see a fairly long way down the pavement.
And then there's the street lighting as well. I didn't see any other.
Before sleep takes a firm hold, your answer please, Mr. Beat. Are you quite sure of what you've just said?
Yes, sir! As a couple who spends all day, every day keeping watch on the streets, I'd swear to it, sir. I'm as sure as my love for Patricia is true. Oh, Pat. Oh, Riley. They're still maintaining there was no one else around other than the victim and the attacker.
By the way, again, I did say this earlier, but if anyone is tuning in and they're listening in, let me know if the game is too soft or too loud, if my voice is too soft, too loud. Because I currently can't hear back anything that's going through the audio. Like, I can hear the game, but I cannot hear what I'm saying, so I don't know if I'm loud or not. So if someone else can let me know, like if I'm too loud, if I need to lower my volume or anything like that, please let me know. Otherwise, I'm just going to continue as is and hope that it works.
It's starting to seem like that must be how it really happened. It's beginning to seem a lot like Christmas. It's beginning to seem like there's nowhere to run.
Oh, why did that crack me up?
Well, that didn't stop Mr. Natsume, did it? He fled the scene all too convincingly.
Thank you. I believe we have a reasonably clear idea of the situation just before the incident now. What happened in the crucial moments that followed?
I was standing when we just got on the road and the other guys.
Hold it!
Scattered something? What do you mean by that? Oh well, I couldn't quite make out what it was at the time. But then we only when we got closer, we realized what it was. Didn't we, darling?
What?
Ah, yes, that's right. It was some old books.
I see. Old books.
Yes, sir! The culprit had dropped a number of them, all around where the victim lay on the pavement.
Indeed, it's clearly pictured in this photographic print.
That rotten Japanese man did that when he took the deed.
Hold it!
Let's not forget that it remains to be established that the defendant was indeed the attacker.
But we saw him. He was the man in the dark without question, sir. The mustache, the hunchback, the cat-like eyes, the top mouth, the snub nose, everything.
Any more insults you want to throw in?
That's right! He looked down at that poor defenseless woman with those terrifying, intense eyes. And then suddenly threw his books onto the pavement and ran away.
I see. This is tough. They seem as though they're telling the truth here. May I remind the court that this unambiguous testimony comes from a policeman and his wife. Now please, continue.
Yes, sir!
I'm really loving doing this, these two voices.
Hold it!
Was it your husband who went to fetch help?
No, I went. I may not be a police officer myself, but I am the proud wife of one after all. Isn't that right, my darling? What? Ah, yes, that's right. I asked Mrs. Beat to go. I was off duty by that point. But a Bobby is never truly off duty, of course. So I felt obliged to stay and God see.
Very laudable, Mr. Beat. Preserving the scene of a crime is a task of considerable importance.
That's why I sent Patricia, you see. I told her where to find the right police box.
Forgive my ignorance, but what do you mean exactly by the right police box?
Depends on the crime's location, you see, as to who deals with it. Where the woman was stabbed wasn't actually on my beat. So I told Patricia the way to the police box for the beat the incident fell under so she could go report. I ran there as quickly as I could and asked for help from the Bobby on duty. There is nothing more potent than a young couple in love working together, you know.
And thanks to your swift response, the case was quickly resolved. The actions of two model citizens.
Oh, please, you're making us blush, isn't he, darling? Yes, sir. What Patricia said, sir.
Let's move on, shall we? And last statement.
Hold it!
But surely you wouldn't have been able to see his face by the light of the gas street lamps, would you?
We absolutely could! Us Londoners have exceptional eyesight, I'll have you know.
Right.
The light from the street lamps was more than enough. And my husband already told you that the fog was only light, didn't he?
Yes, and what of the fog?
We're famous for it across the globe, I believe. But it's an absolute menace to those of us who have to live with it, of course.
Oh, it is. When it's thick, you can't even see the hand at the end of your own arm.
Yes, all right, I take your point. Now, could you stop shaking your husband about?
The constant fog makes makes our eyes very sharp, you see. That's why we can tell you for sure and certain that it was that little Japanese man we saw. Can't we, darling?
What?
Yes, it was the accused and no mistake. The mustache, the hunchback, the cat-like eyes, the top, well, the snub nose. Unmistakable, sir.
As far as this couple's testimony is concerned, there can't be any question. It was the Seki-san that they saw running away from the scene of the crime. So that's it, is it? That's their entire testimony? What do you think, Mr. Naruhodo? Well, I hate to admit it, but hearing the testimony, it really does seem as though Mr. and Mrs. Beat saw what they saw. Shit. It really does seem as though Mr. and Mrs. Beat saw what they say they saw. Not saw what they saw they say. Saw what they saw they say. Shit. I messed it up again. Okay. Mr. Natsume running away from the scene on Briar Road that day. Yes, I feel the same. So if that's the truth, where does it leave us? The members of the jury are sure to call for a guilty verdict after this testimony. I'm giving her the wrong voice. I'm giving her Patricia's voice. Whoops. Oh no! Then what do we do? If Kazuma-sama was here, what are you trying to say? I think you were trying to find a contradiction somewhere else within their testimony. What do you mean, somewhere else? Their statement about seeing Mr. Natsume is unequivocal. Calling that into question won't help. But if you can identify some other part of the testimony which appears to contradict the facts, you might be able to discredit them, to make the jury doubt if the pair's memory of the day is accurate. I already know what I need to do. It's the throw the books on the ground action. Yeah, I'm fairly certain it's that. Oh, right. But simply, we must focus on finding a discrepancy in these statements somewhere. If we don't, I'm afraid the trial may reach an early and unfavorable conclusion. Why do I always seem to be so up against it? Mr. Lawyer, sir? Can I ask you something? Oh, yes, of course. What is it? Well, you keep asking us all these questions about everything we've told you, so... It seems like you don't believe our testimony. Is that right? Is it? Well, out with it. What? No. Oh, no, it's really not that at all. My husband's a policeman, remember? And I know what I saw. I remember every last detail. Everything. Like... Oh, I know. What about the books the man dropped? I could tell you the names of every single one I could. Every single one. And you dare to question how reliable my testimony is?
That will do, Mrs. Beetle.
No, it won't do at all. That Japanese lawyer has no idea what I'm capable of. Even if I decide to forgive him for insulting us, don't think for a minute that Raleigh will. I really didn't mean to cause offense. Please put your husband's fist down.
Perhaps you would like the opportunity to supplement your testimony, Mrs. Beat. Might that appease you?
Oh, thank you, my lord. That would settle things nicely. What is it, darling? I could even tell you the names of the 4 books he dropped at the scene. Well... I already know that's wrong because there's only 3.
And I know it's only 3 as well because the secondhand book receipt only has 3 books on it. But I feel like if I were to do that, then it would come up with the whole thing of, oh yeah, but how would you know if he didn't have another book or not? Is there anything in the case files? Okay, no. Okay, I'm going to press this, but I know what I need to do here, so
Hold it!
I'll go back to this.
Yes, we know that there were books dropped at the scene of the crime, as you say.
Those purchased by the accused at the nearby secondhand bookshop on the day in question.
After I'd been to the police box for help, I decided to have a good look over the area for good measure. I am a proud policeman's wife after all. I did for Raleigh.
And what was your husband doing at the time?
Oh, he was lying face down in the snow, getting some well-deserved rest. He works ever so hard, you know, ever so hard. Don't you, my darling?
Interesting way of guarding the scene of the crime.
Well, Mrs. Beat, seeing as you've regaled the court with tales of your powers of recollection, would you be so kind as to recount the titles of the books you observed at the scene?
I'd be happy to. Now, are you all listening? There was the picture of Monsieur somebody or other, and what's it, yearnings. Then there was, a meal for someone, and the last one was definitely the thin gummy something. You see?
Yes, I see there are 1 or 2 holes in your memory.
Oh well, they were along those lines, I'm sure. Quite sure. Not just sure, I'm quite sure.
There were indeed books found at the scene with titles along those lines, as you put it.
Well, what did I tell you? So I think it's very mean the way you've been implying that my testimony can't be trusted. Don't you agree, darling? Anyone who upsets my Patricia will have to answer me to answer to.
Terrifying. Yes, she really is. Okay. Yeah. Thank you. I know what I need to do. Okay, and now... I mean, does it matter which one I do? I'll try the secondhand book receipt first because it says he only got 3.
Objection!
Okay. I feel like you could have done either or.
So, you're saying that there were 4 books?
That's right. I remember all of them. The picture of Monsieur somebody, what's it yearnings, a meal for someone, and the thin gummy something.
I'm sorry, Mrs. Beat. But there is a fundamental flaw in that statement of yours.
Oh no! What flaw? What flaw?
Okay. Simply that at the scene of the crime, there were only 3 books, not 4.
What?
This is the receipt from the bookshop where the defendant bought his books.
Your books?
Yes, and it details Mr. Natsume's purchases that day. But as you can see, only 3 books are listed.
Only 3? But no, that can't be. I remember seeing them. There were 4 books, I tell you. 4 dirty old books.
Oh, really? Have a good look at this photographic print of the scene of the crime.
Yeah, I feel like it didn't really matter which one I chose.
As you can clearly see from this evidence as well, there were only 3 books.
But I just don't believe it. I saw them there. I swear it. I saw them.
No, madam, I'm afraid your powers of observation cannot be relied upon. So it cannot be denied that though you say it was the defendant you saw, you could very well be mistaken.
Oh no! Oh no! Oh no! Oh no! No!
Objection!
Punch. It's plainly evident that it is your powers of deduction that cannot be relied upon, my learned Nipponese friend.
What?
What cannot be denied is that these 2 witnesses saw the accused running from the scene. A fact that you know very well you have no hope of disproving.
Ah!
So you've striven to avert attention from that by dint of some inconsequential discrepancies. Would that be fair?
He sees right through me.
But your plan has somewhat recoiled against you.
What are you talking about?
It's quite simple. Let me explain with a toast. To the policeman's wife and her entirely accurate testimony in every respect.
Ow!
You see, the matter is not up for debate. At the scene on Briar Road, a total of 4 books were most definitely found.
Objection!
But what about the photographic print? It only shows 3 books.
Quite right. Only 3 can be seen in that print.
That print? You mean to say?
Allow me to present another, one that shows the victim's hand.
I don't believe it. It's the 4th book.
As you will observe, the 4th book was hidden from view in the original print by the victim's torso.
No. No!
Order! Order!
There, you see? You see? Look at that! Look, look, look!
Yes.
It's just like I said, isn't it, my darling? Yes, sir! Patricia's always right, sir.
Let us study the receipt for the books purchased by the accused on the day in question. Mrs. Beats, the titles once again, if you please.
Oh, yes, of course. The picture of Monsieur somebody or other.
The picture of Monsieur Lecoq.
What's it, yearnings?
Canterbury Yearnings.
A meal for someone.
A meal for Gabriel. Gabriel. A meal for Gabriel, in fact. As the court has just heard, the witness remembers the book titles flawlessly, save for a few minor details. Mrs. Beats' powers of recollection can only be described as exceptional.
Did you hear that, Raleigh? The gentleman paid me a compliment.
Yes, sir! Flawless, sir! Patricia is flawless.
But there were only 3 books on the receipt, and Mrs. Beat mentioned 4.
There's nothing surprising about that. Clearly the 4th book is that which is shown in this photographic print. It's her book. Get it right, my learned Nipponese friend. I'm getting a little too much into character.
I'm sorry, Counsel, but does that not seem odd? Why should the fourth book be omitted from the receipt?
It's not odd at all, my lord. As the photograph clearly shows, the fourth book was found in the victim's clutches. In other words, it belongs to the victim.
The victim was holding her own book? I wonder, what became of that fourth book?
Obviously, it wasn't overlooked by the investigating officers at Scotland Yard. I have it here as evidence.
You will submit that in the aforementioned photographic print to the court, please, Counsel.
My pleasure, my lord. The second crime scene photograph has been entered into the court record. Second photograph of the scene taken by a policeman just after the incident. It specifically shows the victim's hand, and it was burnt, so that might be of note. The fourth book has been entered into the court record. A book entitled The Lion's Pride, discovered in the victim's hand at the scene. The prosecution rests. I have nothing further to add.
What?
You seem surprised, my learned friend. But your resistance until now has been in vain. Entertaining, yes, but futile. The spurious longer route to the accused lodgings that you tried to establish in your summation examination, and the attempted discrediting of the witness's powers of recollection in your cross-examination.
Futile?
I walked right into this, didn't I?
You see, everything we've said is true. Isn't that right, my darling? Yes, Pat. Marry me, Pat.
So, perhaps the ladies and gentlemen of the jury would like to reconsider their positions. Should the court waste any more time on this Nipponese travesty? Nipponese. I know it's supposed to be Nipponese, but I feel like he says Nipponese. Or is the decision you have to make all too apparent already? You have heard all of the witnesses and seen all of the evidence. This trial has run its course.
Mr. Naruhodo, I'm afraid we're in a terribly precarious position. I know, but if I fight back in the wrong way now, I could very well just make matters worse. Think, Ryunosuke, think. What do you do now?
Wait and see. Let's see here.
Oh, look at this! The book has been badly burnt.
You're right. You'd never be able to read it in this state, especially not the latter pages.
What a terrible waste. Judging from the scorched edges of the paper, I think the damage must have occurred very recently.
A book recently damaged by fire. Why does that seem to raise a red flag with me? The fourth book's information has been updated in the court record. Wait. I'm having to recollect what yeah, I'm having to recollect what all happened, but wasn't there a fire with the other guy? The guy that we testified with like yesterday? Well, yesterday in the game, not yesterday in real life. Hold on.
Let me see. It's a book entitled The Lion's Pride. I'm afraid I don't know any English literature at all, so it wouldn't be something I've heard. Wait a minute. The Lion's Pride? That's strange. I think I have heard of a book by that name before. And very recently, too. It's a title I recognize too, Mr. Naruhodo. Yep, okay. That kind of solidified it for me. The book is the problem. Which, because she is carrying it, means that she... Wait, is that the maid? Yeah, is that like the maid with a wig on or something? And of course the victim is comatose, so you can't talk to her and make sure that it was actually her. I'm gonna look something up real quick. I want to see, because I'm going to go with wait and see. Great Ace Attorney, episode 4. Alright, Polygon. Help me out with this. The Adventure of the Clouded Kokoro. Investigation Part 2, Trial Part 1. Okay, so now. It is a raise an objection. I always just want to wait and see, but yeah, I'll raise an objection.
Objection!
The point being, if you hadn't examined the book and raised an objection, then it would cause a problem. So I'm not done yet. No, my learned friend, it's over. That last cross-examination was your final chance to establish a credible defense, and you failed. The die has been cast. There is no more room for debate. Well, it might be over as far as you're concerned, but... I can't think of what to say. If I may, Lord Van Zeeks, it seems somewhat boorish to close down the debate at this point. Your insignificant little Eastern Isle must be a lawless hole indeed. For a lowly judicial assistant to have the audacity to intervene at a moment like this. Oh! I am, to my shame, still a very inexperienced lawyer. So you will have to forgive me, but I consider my assistant's advice essential and her opinions invaluable. Mr. Naruhodo!
One of this land's great guiding principles is tolerance. So, the court will hear you, madam.
Go ahead, Mr. Sato. Please. Very well. Pray, what insights can you give us? What have we all overlooked in this matter that you see fit to pursue further? Well, the case has been presented with new evidence, but only after the last cross-examination finished.
I see. And you believe that this new evidence warrants further examination, do you?
Mr. Naruhodo, what do you think? It's just possible that this new evidence might be the decisive proof we've been waiting for. The judge is sure to ask the members of the jury to announce their leanings in a moment. And of course, he's sure to ask you to explain what the crucial piece of evidence is and why. So we must take this opportunity to examine the newly presented evidence as thoroughly as possible.
Yes, I understand. And thank you, Miss Susato. This is it. Susato-san has managed to win us one last chance here.
I can't let it go to waste.
The defense wishes to present evidence, my lord.
Very well. The defense may present one further piece of evidence. Evidence that apparently offers a profound insight into this case and has hitherto been overlooked.
The fourth book.
The evidence in question is what we can see from the newly presented photographic print of the crime scene. The fourth book, found in the victim's hand.
Objection!
Objection!
We have already discussed the fourth book at length. Other than it being in the victim's grasp at the time of the incident, no significance has been attached to it. Pursuing the matter further would be a flagrant a flagrant waste of the court's time, as you well know.
Ah!
Yes, I'm afraid, counsel, I must concur with the prosecution on this matter. When I afforded you this opportunity, you led the court to believe that the evidence in question contained a hitherto undiscovered clue. So I must insist that you elaborate, counsel. You will identify this clue at once. Do I make myself clear?
Oh, yes, my lord. It's, Mr. Naruhodo. I believe the prosecution is trying to avoid a thorough examination of the evidence, which means you may very well be on the right track. Yes, I think you might be right.
So, counsel, precisely where is the vital clue to this case, which this fourth book conceals?
Got it!
Got it. I would ask the court to observe the back of the book in question.
The back? What do you... Good gracious! It's been put to a crisp.
So we have to ask ourselves, why was the victim clutching what is clearly an unreadable book? It is undeniably an extremely unnatural thing for her to have been doing.
It's gonna come out that it was the maid.
Objection!
Unnatural, you say? And what of it, my Nipponese friend?
Oh,
Were I to concede the point, if it bears no relation to the case, there is nothing to discuss. So, should you wish to assert that this fire damage is some verified clue as to what happened that day, pray do enlighten us all. What truth does this charred book hide?
a charred book. There is just one possibility here, which I can't quite bring myself to rule out. It's an outside chance, certainly, but worth a try. All right, I'll explain my theory.
Don't keep us waiting any longer then, counsel. Explain this theory of yours. What are you suggesting that you can ascertain from the fire damage this sorry tome has suffered?
The shop that sold it. Oh wait, no. She didn't get it from a shop. Its content, the lines probably doesn't really matter. Its owner. Because if it was owned by the guy that has the quote-unquote maid, then it brings up the thought of why is that book in the, what's her name? Green? Olive green? Yeah. Why would Olive Green own the book that was charred at the maid's master's house? Master, quote unquote. Its owner.
My lord, the burn on the back of this book reveals a startling truth about the book's owner.
I beg your pardon?
But we already know who the book belongs to. The victim was gripping it in her hand as she fell to the floor, after all. It's obviously hers. The question of how this book came to be in the victim's hand has yet to be answered. However, as to the question of who the book really belongs to and where it originated, the defense has very credible answers.
Good gracious! How can you possibly?
Very well. I'll play along with this futile attempt to delay your inevitable demise. But do remember, the members of the jury may well burn you if your little gamble goes awry.
Right.
Counsel, the defense's response here is very likely to influence the final outcome of this trial. So tell the court, who do you claim is the owner of this burnt book?
John Garadab, a retired army man who's the landlord of the lodgings rented by the defendant, Mr. Natsume. Because recently, his house, his living room, his lodgings was recently burned.
Take that!
The answer is that the book belongs to the couple who own the house where the defendant has his lodgings. A certain Mr. and Mrs. Garadab.
The landlords?
And whether this is some extraordinary coincidence or some kind of fate at work, I don't know, but of all the people in London, one of the 6 chosen for jury duty in this courtroom today is none other than Mrs. Garadab herself.
Oh my goodness! Me? I think you must be mistaken, sir. I'm not Mr. Garadab's wife. I'm his maid.
Things would be so much easier if you would just drop the pretense. Alright then, how about a simple question for you? Have you ever seen this book in Mr. Garadab's house?
I would never presume to know all of the books he keeps, sir.
Objection!
This is outlandish behavior. This woman is the accused landlady, you say? You implicate this hard-working member of the public. You besmirch her without a shred of evidence. Your actions are unforgivable.
Objection!
Objection.
This is not mere conjecture. The defense happens to know that on the day in question, at almost exactly the same time as the victim was stabbed on the pavement below, another incident was taking place in the room on the top floor of Mr. and Mrs. Garadab's house.
Good Lord! What sort of incident, counsel?
A fire, my lord.
Afraid to say it was. Happened in the blink of an eye. Happened in the blink of an eye, you know. The whole place filled with smoke. Couldn't see a bally thing. Didn't take long for the fire to spread, of course. The bally furniture started going up as well. Worst of it is, I lost my favorite. Book called The Lion's Pride.
And that's where that connection is. The Lion's Pride.
By Jove! The very same title that's the subject of this debate. Oh dear me!
Objection!
This is risible. All you've told the courts is that a book by the same name was involved in a fire. In which case, it would be reasonable to assume that it was burnt to ashes. And entirely unreasonable to infer that it magically removed itself to the scene of the crime.
Perhaps it would make more sense if I told you that the cause of the fire was marital discord. Without going into details, of course, it appears that Mrs. Garadab was considerably enraged. Apparently, she continued to attack Mr. Garadab even amid the flames. Oh, how awful! I can't even imagine being so hard to the one you love. Can you, Raleigh?
Absolutely not, sir. My Patricia would never raise her finger against me, sir.
But she'll choke you multiple times. I guess she's just making sure that he's awake, so it's not necessarily just choking.
Had all my favorite old novels in that case. But as soon as the fire got hold of them, that was it. Whoosh! Up in smoke. Then the wife started hurling things at me. There was I, back up against the window, under heavy enemy fire. Incendiary books incoming 10 to the dozen. The man had his back up against the window, and he had burning books thrown at him. Goodness gracious! Are you suggesting that the book was thrown through a window and landed coincidentally at the scene of the crime?
Objection!
No. A thorough investigation of the surrounding area was conducted the very evening of the incident, and there is no report of the Gyarados window pane being broken.
That's quite true. We also saw no sign of broken glass when we visited the Gyarados household. But is it not conceivable that the window was open at the time in...
Not even remotely. Let us not forget the season and the chilling weather that accompanies it. No Londoner would ever leave a window open in the middle of winter.
Ah!
Does the defense postulate this scenario in all seriousness, Counsel? Do you honestly claim that the book found at the scene was a flaming projectile thrown by Mr. Gyarados' wife?
I believe it's a possibility, my lord.
That's quite enough.
Oh.
That's quite enough. Well, I hope that everyone can see you for what you are now, you little foreign trickster. You call yourself a lawyer, but you're just a coward. A mean coward.
Really?
Claiming that our little tiff set the whole neighborhood alight. Honestly. Implying that I'm merely posing as a maid for appearance's sake. How could you? That's nothing to do with this beastly case, not any of it. All you've done is sully your family's name. No, I assure you that was never my intention. Dragging an upstanding citizen's name through the mud simply to divert attention from your failing defense. I should box your ears, that's what I should do. It's utterly unforgivable.
Too right. Too right.
Sorry, I have to get some water. Here we go.
How long have we sat here now, listening to this Nipponese spelling out his fancy foreign theories? But think about it. At the end of the day, the only person who could possibly have stabbed the victim is that little hunchback with the mustache, and he ran away from the scene too.
I do declare you're right. It's true.
Yes, what did I tell you?
Makes sense to me. Sorry, what's that? Well, it would appear that the ladies and gentlemen of the jury are once again in full agreement. What is your position, Lord Van Zeeks?
In truth, my lord, I feel these have been unnecessarily protracted. Oh, jeez. Proceedings. But then one must always exercise patience in order to savor the best vintage.
No, wait! The mystery of the fourth book still hasn't been...
Oh! If books are your predilection, my learned friend, study them on your own time.
What? No, forgive the discourtesy this time?
In that case, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, you will now state your individual decisions regarding the defendant's culpability for the court to hear.
Guilty!
Guilty.
Guilty! Guilty. Guilty.
Guilty. Guilty.
Guilty again.
Thank you for that unambiguous response.
That's twice now. It's over. Mr. Naruhodo, don't give up! Miss Susato? Have you forgotten? The battle isn't over yet. You're not suggesting? Of course! The defense has the right to another summation examination at this point. You could still convince the jurors to change their minds. You have one more chance. My lord, the defense asks to exercise its right to a summation examination.
You believe you still have tricks up your sleeve?
I don't intend to trick anybody. I intend to uncover the truth. This is no time to be downcast. As long as there's a chance, I have to stay strong and determined.
And this is the end of part 1? To be continued, okay. Okay, so originally I was going to do another